And we are live. Hello, hello. For those of you who are joining us, I am here with Shail Patel, and it's a huge honor for me to have Shail, and we'll explain a little bit more about why. But it's been quite an emotional day for me. We started the day together in a meeting, and we're finishing the day together in a different, it's not a meeting. It's the last live show for the summer. But before I tell you more about this special guest today, I'm going to do the boring bit, which is I'm Christina Garidi. I'm the founder of Eudaimonia Coaching, and I'm on a mission to propel people to live authentically. And I coach ambitious professionals like Shail used to be a few years ago, and entrepreneurs. Funnily enough, he became an entrepreneur to decode their purpose and find career alignment. I introduced the Eudaimonia success model globally in 2018 as a TEDx speaker, and I am writing my book with a lot of effort and a lot of iteration on how to access the eudaimonic state of mind. Eudaimonia, for those of you who are joining us for the first time and may not know what it means, it's an ancient Greek paradigm for well-being, and it means human flourishing in open translation. And it has been literally forgotten for about 2 millennia and only mentioned in philosophy or psychology courses, which of course we want to change. So here we are. And of course, I am the host of Eudaimonia Live Show, where I showcase brilliant people that come across in my life, and there's many of them, who bring a sprinkle of Eudaimonia into our lives. And today, I have the honor to present our guest. Shail Patel is based in London and has spent the last 17 plus years in business transformation, specializing in program leadership, whilst being a constant seeker of truth and alignment, which has led to a variety of ventures and opportunities along the journey. And he's going to be talking a little bit more about that. But really, today's focus for a live show is Shail's path to self-actualization. Complicated word, I know. So he will share with us how a eudemon takes the first few steps in this esoteric journey. It's an inner journey, right? In order to flourish, to really bring what's inside to the outside. And as a coach, I empower people to realize their maximum potential. And Shail will decode for us the courage it takes to transform, but also to break down a big mountain of living life on purpose to its key components and translate them into small, achievable steps, chunking down basically, right? So who in here has ever been struggling with knowing how to self-express purpose, right? And live on purpose? If you gave us a nod, thank you for your honesty. You are in the right place today. And of course, your questions are welcome, so you can drip feed them and we'll pick them up from the chat. We have Christy with us, who says hello from Florida. Hello, how are you? So nice to have you with us on our journey from LinkedIn. So if I know anything about Shail, welcome, first of all. He is the quiet type. He's very intentional. Since I know him, since we work together on our purpose, on your purpose, and you took the eudaimonic journey with me, probably three to 4 years ago, right? We came together, and you said, "Yeah, I'm finding my purpose," and within a year or two, he literally moved in steadily from, not knowing his purpose to uplifting others along the way. That was the essence of his purpose statement. And now he's in the restaurant business. And really, I'm curious, for you to share, how did it all start? Like, how did it end up taking such a quick, accelerated journey to being a professional, being stuck in the 9 to 5, to the urge to find purpose, and then, of course, basically run with it?
So firstly, thank you for having me. Really fantastic, great opportunity. So I guess the journey really did start a long time ago. I guess it's that, and you mentioned it earlier, it's that self-exploration about knowing what you want to do with your and knowing what aligns with your values, and it doesn't have to be what society expects it to be, or you think expects it to be. And I think for me, doing the coaching with Christina was massive in terms of really speaking through what you've been thinking, speaking through what you might want to do, and making it real. And what I mean by that is, it doesn't have to be a big bang. You don't have to leave the 9 to 5 or leave some of that stability and security and take a massive risk and just plunge into something. And that's exactly what me and Christina talked through. And I think just talking through that and having a plan and saying, okay, well, actually, this isn't going to be instant. This will take a few years. Was a really good way to look at it, because otherwise it can be very, very daunting. Right? It can be daunting in a number of different ways, right? Financially, security-wise, just personal change in lifestyle and everything. And you mentioned the restaurant, but the other thing that came up was moving away from 9 to 5 and moving into what we call contracting or freelancing work as well, which was a great first step actually into just being self-employed and moving into business. And it was a softer transition as well, because I was still doing what I was doing in a permanent role working for companies, but doing it for myself and my own company. And it was a really good grounding in understanding how a business operates, the financial behind it, the technical setup, all of that sort of stuff, which was then leveraged into new niches. So that's a bit about how the transition happened. I think the other big thing was talking through this with Christina and writing it down and looking at plans and figuring out what it is you really want. Sometimes that's it, right? And it's not always I know. Sometimes you just know you want to do something different, or you know there's something else out there for you. You don't know exactly what that is, right? So working through that was really important, and setting the intent. And I think it was doing all of that work plus the planning and so on is when the opportunity came. I knew this was right, and so it's the cliche old saying, it's when preparedness meets opportunity, right? You can call it luck, and I think there's definitely a portion of luck involved, but it is doing the work and being prepared, so when the opportunity comes, you're ready to go in. It's not such a big step for you because you've done that preparation.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing this part. And what I keep from this is that it's okay not to know, but know that you want to find something. So I keep the intent part you said, but also when eventually you find what you want, and you keep intentional, you don't have to make massive steps. You can transition softer into what you really will allow you to open up the space to do what you really want. And when it appears, then it's a right opportunity, right? So it's not luck for you. It wasn't, it was lucky. It was, I was so intentional. I was already making space for something new by shifting from 9 to 5 and corporate employment to self-employment. So when it came up, then I could make that space for this thing that would grow me in the direction that I already knew I had to grow. Plus, may I say that Shail was already volunteering. So he was really testing out himself in terms of what I love to, do, even if I'm not getting paid. And there was a lot of volunteering that you were doing. I remember back then you were contributing to a few charities in your own personal time. So you have already polished in such a way, if I can call it that, the things you really love to give, what contributions really allow you to, feel good within. So there was no doubt by the time you were going to get paid doing that.
Absolutely, and it's a really good point in terms of the transition. Right, it doesn't have to be like we say, wasn't an all in. And in fact, for me, I'm still doing the contracting and have these other ventures going on, and there's no distraction, there's no conflict between the two, and it's the planning through all of that.
Thank you. So 3 weeks ago, while in Italy at a common friend's wedding, we mentioned and we started talking about the importance of carving out time. And you are actually in the middle of practicing this as we speak. Tell us how you started recognizing in your life the importance of needing to do so, but also what it has achieved for you over the years, what it has helped you achieve over the years. Because I think we all want time off,
Mm.
holidays. But we're not talking about just a holiday while you're like intentionally taking time off, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So I think firstly, it's quite a big step to take time off, right? It's not something we do naturally. Um, about a couple of weeks holiday here or there, but actually taking substantial time off, um, yeah, isn't always done. And so knowing you want to do that is quite important. Knowing what you're going to do with that time is also very important. And it does give you that space to not just focus on career or business or whatever you're doing, but focus on yourself. Right?
Mhm.
Take the time to explore. Take this time to find out what your values are. Take the time to find out what your internal self is saying. Because we get so caught up in external, we get so caught up in doing what society needs us to do, playing the role we're playing. How can we take even a minute to listen to yourself and say, okay, well, what is it that I want? What is it that I'm doing? How is it I feel? How does it feel in this place of employment? How does that feel doing this work? Um, so for me, it was really important, and for me, the time off is where I had the most personal growth in my business or jobs or anything like that. That's where I had the most personal growth because I really got to sit with myself and I really got to be honest with myself. And it's not always easy. It can bring up a whole load of things, but it was definitely worth it looking back.
So, guys, if you heard what I heard, and I need to hear it for myself, wow, this is huge because we have so much guilt around taking time off, right? We feel we have to be productive all the time, we have to be useful all the time, we have to be contributing all the time, in a society that has conditioned us to feel in this way. And, I get trapped into this sometimes as well. But what here is so important to share, and we had a long afternoon walk and conversation around that. But really, really important what Shail shared, that really what he has achieved through taking time off is to grow most. When you're in the hamster wheel, when you're producing, when you are, and there's a time for that, right? Like the seasons around the year, taking winter time off, huge, huge, because then you can come to spring and you can come to summer solstice today, almost tomorrow, to reap the benefits, and come to autumn again, and winter. So really thank you for sharing this. And you can see how calm and zen he is because he's in the middle of it, he's listening to himself. um, so take note. We have a hello, hi from Hampshire, from Richard Baker. Hello. Beautiful, beautiful. And I think it's within that time when you mentioned, before, about that intentional synchronicity that you described to us in the previous question, right? When you have that time, you can see clearly what aligns and what doesn't align. But if you don't have that time to be able to sink in and say, okay, is that right? Then normally we have to make decisions not from a place of intuition, because we're not listening to ourselves, but from a place of haste and, okay, well, it sounds good. It sounds like a promotion. I should take it, for example,
Yeah, yeah.
which can be difficult. So tell us a little bit about then intentional synchronicity and how it has appeared to you, and how, for example, what types of decisions that has led you to, because that's quite unique. And Carl Jung calls that synchronicity, that
Mm,
nothing is random, but it actually
mm.
happens when you are able to see it. But how do you experience it, and how can someone tap into it, perhaps?
So I guess the first thing is being aware of your intentions
Mm,
in everything you do,
mm, mm,
what you're doing, why you're doing, how you're doing it, right?
mm,
take it a step further in relation to this conversation, it was, well, what's my intention around job, career, and adventures you want to do outside the 9 to 5, and all of that. And for me, doing the coaching allowed me to explore that a bit more, allowed me to crystallize it. I think that's one of the most important things, because when you start this journey, you can have very grand gestures, you can have very grand intentions. It can be almost too broad and too vague. And then there's several paths you can go down. Right? You can go down the analysis paralysis and never move, or you can break it down and really, really look at it. What does this look like in reality? What does this look like as one small step? But even before you get to a step taking action, it's setting that intention, feeling that it's the right intention for you. Yeah. There's no resistance.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I truly believe when you're clear on that, the synchronicity, the way I take it, is things start to happen. Whether you want to call it the universe, people, the world, opportunities come your way that align with your intention. And it may just be because you're clearer with your intention, you'll see these opportunities. Maybe they were always there.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what it meant for me. And it's the best example I can give was, Christina mentioned earlier, the restaurants. So food was always, I won't say always, so food became, for the last 10, 15 years or so, just an interesting part of my life that I want to explore a bit more. My journey was, I went vegan for about 18 months, many, many years ago. And just through that process, learning a lot about food and health and the impact of both, and having friends going through the same thing. And one of my friends, took it to different levels, went and done courses, and really looked at food, nutrition, impact on disease, and so on and so forth. But there was a fun element to it as well. So okay, so I'm doing all of this, but then cooking became a thing, and how food and relations form. So how you relate to someone over a meal, how you relate to someone when you're cooking for them, all of that. And I said, okay, I want to do something with this. And for me, I was fortunate enough to have someone in my circle who was also on that journey, gone into the food business, the restaurant business, and wanted to expand. And that was my opportunity. And having done the work, and there was an initial, I want to say, hesitation, because it's a big step, especially when you're investing your own funds into something, and it's a restaurant business. It's not the easiest business to be a part of. But
definitely risky, from management and leadership to restaurant business, right?
But again, knowing that intent and knowing that actually this could be a vehicle for so much more. And for me, that it was never about a financial gain. It was about what this restaurant can be a vehicle for, what we want to achieve. Having the aligned values with the other partners who were doing this was also made it so much easier. It was so massive. So you're aligned personally, they're aligned to what your values are.
Yeah.
It's almost a no-brainer, right? And that is the best example I can give of intentional synchronicity. And there's loads of smaller things that happen day to day, right? Einstein was probably put it best and said, you can see everything as a miracle, or nothing is a miracle.
Beautiful. One of my
favorites. Yeah, exactly. I think he's describing synchronicity, and I think he's just describing how things happen, how such a complex organism, whether it's the human body, the way nature operates, everything, and how it works so perfectly.
Wow. Guys, by the way, I've eaten at the restaurant, and we'll put some information after the live show finishes. It's called Amrutha Lounge, and it's in what's the location?
So there's one in Colesfield, which is southwest London, and there's one in Honor Oak, which is in southeast London.
So we'll share the locations. Whoever is in London or is planning to come to London, it's vegan food, it's healing food, it's energizing, uplifting food, which is absolutely aligned with Shail's purpose statement, by the way, interestingly. Just talking about alignment. I love what you said there. There was hesitation, but there was no fear. And there was an interesting kind of phrase you used. There was no resistance.
Mm.
It almost it took you over, right? So I think we're going to come back to it. But I just want to note a couple of things as a coach, in what you shared, looking at it retrospectively, because we talked about fears back then, but none of these wording even featured in your answer today, which is a beautiful observation from my side. Because it wasn't even a question about that. It was, am I intentional? Is it going to get me to where I want? Am I able to be integral with what I want? And intentional, boom. Hesitation, yes, but no resistance. So I just wanted to note those words in terms of how the feelings will guide you in knowing what's the right opportunity for you. And of course, Shail is successful with his business partner in their restaurant business. We talked about when we met to prepare for this session about this notion, and you have been in the corporate in London for many, many years. You have worked in competitive environments, and whoever is in the program management leadership or portfolio management leadership, project management, how competitive big cities, metropolis like London are on that career front. And this man has been there. You see him zen and calm, but he has been on the other end as well. And I know that. We talked about, how that environment makes us compete, makes us having to win, have to be a tough cookie to succeed. And you mentioned about, a few moments ago that it wasn't about the money and so on, but for some people it is, and that's okay. This is part of how they see success, and this is great. But for you, it was clear why you were doing it for, and it didn't happen to be the money. But also, there's this notion that we have, unless it's making money, unless I'm winning, unless I'm competing and other people are losing, this is the thing we've been fed. And of course, it's hard to reconcile when it comes to purpose work. So really, I would like to hear from you, like now that you've been through the transition and now that you are developing different ventures as well, how do you see success now? And it might be different to what you thought it might be when we discussed it, at least three or 4 years ago. But how is it shaping now? How does it resonate for you now?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think just to highlight some of the things you said in terms of the environment you're in, um, the environment can bring out the best or worst in you, right? And the person, I guess both of us, the person you see today wasn't the person you might have seen 10, 15 years ago, right? And that is the beauty in our journeys. That is where the transformation really comes. And it's not easy, and you're going to get help and all the rest of it. But that is the growth. And so the reason I mention environment is there's been a number of companies or clients where the environment hasn't been conducive to maybe the best performance or actually doing the right thing, right? Whether it's the right thing for the people, for the company, it might have been about an agenda, it might have been about winning for an individual, and so on. And so for me, success, or the drive, the motivation behind success, was, with me being here, how can I do the right thing? Setting my intent, right?
Yeah.
What am I doing here, and why am I doing it, right? And sometimes it might come across direct, and it might come across as firm or whatever it is. But when you're aligned with that intent and you're doing it for the right reason, it's so much more easier to do it, right? And successes for me is literally when you can live every day with your alignment. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to go and change your career or start a business or do a new job. It's how do you operate day to day where you are right now,
Yeah.
right? How do you communicate with people around you? Um, and so that's really important. I think that will outweigh any material success, right? Because there isn't a complex, should I do this? Should I do that? It's, for me, it was, am I doing the right thing for the people, for the company? And you know, that felt easy to me. That gave me energy, that gave me motivation. That's what got me up in the morning, right? Especially when you're doing transformations for large companies, it's never easy. There's a massive human element to it that we often forget, right? And there are some great change managers around who really know and really know how to tap into that nature of that element of it is okay. But it can often be forgotten by leadership just because, not for any negative reasons, it's because they're just so far removed or they're so focused on the result they need to achieve. Yes, I just wanted to touch on that bit about environment and how important it is, and it can change you. I mean, not so long ago there was a client where it stayed there for a while, but it was an environment that wasn't the most conducive. But I went through and on by keeping my intent right. I'm trying to do the right thing. It wasn't about a personal agenda. It wasn't about anything else. But it was how do you deliver this, you know, thing that we set out to in the best possible way, right? And that's going to have the biggest positive impact to the company and the people.
And what I really love about your definition of success is that you brought it back to what's so close to you that there's no, it's not about who you want to be in the future. It's the day to day, it's the now. And what's striking for me is really you simplified it so easy for me to understand now that this is really about how I'm applying my values. Who am I being today? Am I doing it for the right reasons? And that just simple question day to day, because it's not about changing your job. It's not about, but day to day, once you start doing this almost, self practice of, kind of checking in with yourself, because you were talking about taking time out to listen, but you don't have to necessarily do it right now, or we may not all have the luxury to take the time out to be able to listen to ourselves, do coaching or whatever else we need to do in order to come to our center. But day to day, when we start asking, am I in line with my values, with what I'm doing? Am I able to work towards doing the right thing for me and others here? Sooner or later, we realize whether this environment is conducive for us to be who we need to be or who we want to be. And I think, was it, I can't remember the philosopher's name, I never do. But there was one phrase that really stuck with me, which was the biggest frustration for a human being is to not be ourselves. Right? And this is the whole, holy grail to purpose coaching, fulfillment, knowing our purpose, self-actualization, eudaimonia, you name it, right? But this is it. And it comes down to one single question that Shail shared with us. Am I being who I'm supposed to be being? Am I in line with my values today, right now? And the answer will come, and it doesn't have to be dramatic, but it will shift us towards what we truly are here to do. But it comes from having that conversation every day.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's never, it's. I don't want to say never. Actually, some people might be, but it's not always a linear journey, right? You might find you're doing it fantastic for a year or two, and then you're in a different environment and that changes, or stuff's come up for you. But it's the persistence and it's the continuation of asking the questions, continuation of being able to talk to someone else about it as well. So it's not all too internal, right? I think all of that is very important because we can always talk about the successes, and someone listening will be like, okay, well that's easy for someone else, but it isn't, right? And it isn't a linear journey, and you will make mistakes, and there are times you'll feel crap about, oh, you've done something. But again, being aware that you've done that is enough. It is literally enough, right? And resetting, going back in, and again taking that time. That time could be 5 minutes. That time could be a few deep breaths.
Yeah. Doesn't have to be anything complex. And that's the thing, when we talk about success, especially when I was younger, I could definitely hold my hand to this, say, it's a big dream, you need to know what you want. And it could be family, it could be something close to us, but it's always related to achieving something, accomplishing something, right? But
Mm.
it's interesting that for you that's not the case. And it's so important to share alternative definitions of success out there, and how you have made sense of it, because it's about what meaning you give it. And thank you for teaching us today. And part of that is, since our purpose days, I remember that you were always attuned to your inner spiritual needs and voice. And I want really to ask you if you could share how has the spiritual practice, may I call it, helped you with your choices in life and in work? Because, as well, you didn't know when you joined probably eudaimonia, but you realized quite quickly, because you're not of Greek heritage. Eudaimonia is about being in good terms with our spirit, our inner spirit, and our demons, right? And I really wanted to ask you, now that, of course, have worked in this paradigm as well, of course, as bringing your own very beautiful heritage into this. How do you use now these abilities and these principles from where you are as a business owner of one major business, plus yourself, your own consultancy, but also going into a new business? How do you use these principles from your spiritual practice to make decisions in life and in work? And how important that has been for you to integrate as part of this journey?
So important. I think yeah, it's massive. How is a really interesting question, because I think doing the practice, whatever that practice is for you, you will see changes. Uh,
Mm,
you mentioned it earlier. It's being honest, firstly to yourself, right? Accepting the things that are coming up, not holding on to them, so being able to let go.
mm,
Once you're authentic with yourself,
mm,
externally, it's it's quite natural, right? We've often asked still today, like this is not a finished journey. I don't think the journey ever finishes, to be honest. You'll know when you're doing something that doesn't quite align
mm,
with whatever your belief system is, whatever your values are. If you're able to again listen to your gut, listen to your intuition, listen to yourself,
mm,
your true self, not the role you're playing, not the hat you're wearing at that time. Um, that for me is really how it shows up, right? And this is also where the courage comes in,
mm,
because we don't always have it. I don't always have it, but it's the courage to then, okay, I feel this doesn't feel quite right, okay, and so are you able to voice it? Are you able to take action on it? Are you able to do something? Sometimes you're not. Sometimes you just have to accept it's out of your control, right? But there's something you've learned there. There's something you know, right? Doing the practice is so important. And for me, it was when I took time away and outside of the normal 9 to 5, whether I wanted to or not. Sometimes life happens, right? Is is where you get more of that growth, and is where you get you mentioned it earlier, and then when you go back in,
mm,
you see your interactions with work and with business and with people slightly different. Might not be major.
mm.
That slight shift for you will feel quite big.
Thank you. Thank you. Because what you're really saying is that Wow, and I'm integrating it, but how huge this is to be shared. And first of all, I'll say hello for from Kishan Joshi from Gujarat in India. Hello. Um, wow. So authenticity, basically being honest with ourselves, is your spiritual practice, which is like we think it has to be meditation, it has to be this, it has to be that, whatever else complicate things in our head, right? Intellectually, at least, we love to say, oh yeah, well, you need to have this and this and this, and until you're doing this, actually, what you're saying is those 5 minutes of asking, "Am I aligned?" is all it takes to know whether you're being authentic
Yeah,
day to day. And then when you want to perhaps integrate bigger things where courage needs to come in, or when you realize for consistent days that I'm not being who I'm supposed to be or who I want to be here, then you start seeing, right? And then perhaps taking time off to be able to gain perspective is all the growth where if you've been doing this practice and you carry on doing it, the answers will become clear because now you have the space to act. Sometimes the day to day doesn't allow. But what I'm hearing is that it's almost I'm trying to I'm trying to formularize it, if that makes sense. It's like if you want any courage, you need to be able to take that time for yourself, starting from a couple of minutes a day to being able to take the courage to take the time out from what you're doing to be able to come back in, either forced or not.
yeah,
What you're seeing it as is a miracle, it's a gift, it's that intentional synchronicity we talked about. If it's happening to you, then it's time to take it.
yeah, yeah.
And it's the
Absolutely.
difference is whether there's resistance or not.
Yeah, yeah.
um
Going through that journey and accepting that journey, and
yeah, yeah.
I think
um
is important. Yeah, you might have to go through the. Not you might if you're on the journey, you will have to go through the intellect, the mind, the ego, all of these things.
mhm,
It still happens for me. It still happens for the majority of people. Um, and again, sometimes the practice falls off as well. So even taking the 5 minutes at the end of the day, when you're so busy and you're exhausted, you're wearing 10 hats a day,
mhm,
it falls off, but eventually comes back. Right? And the more you can embed that into your routine,
mhm.
into your lifestyle, and I think that's when the courage becomes easier as well. Because there's an inner power in all of us, right? Whether we see it or not, and
Mm.
it's how we tap into it.
Yeah.
Right? And for me, it was the power always comes, and again, I'll take it back to the alignment. It's if something feels aligned and it feels right, then it's quite easy to step in.
Oh yes, oh yes. And integrity we were discussing. I'm writing in my book. This is the chapter I was on when we were connecting with Shail. Was when we are able to be integral. There is no wasted of energy because we are in line with what we're here to do. And when that happens, that state of mind is there. Basically, the spirit, the soul, our intent, our will, our energy, our focus is aligned. There's no waste in energy, right? Where we get wasted and burned out and tired, and it's when we are misaligned with what we're here to do. And all it takes is 5 minutes every day to listen to our spirit, who's anyway telling us what we need to be doing. Our conscience, our integrity is there. But if you are the gift that comes back from that practice, shall we call it the spiritual practice or the eudaimonic practice, however, whichever language you want to use. I think the Indian philosophers and the Greek philosophers were not too far when they were describing the same things, different words. Um, what comes is power, immense power within. And whether you believe in God and you want to assign it there, or whether you want to assign it to the demon within, the spirit, same thing. But what is paramount is that authenticity, that honesty with ourselves, not necessarily some complicated tool or method you need to use to come to that place of power at all. Daily practice. Wow, I think this is huge. And really, for people who are with us on the call, how would you advise a person who's inspired by this and wants to start this journey, the self-actualization journey of realizing their fullest potential, that fulfillment that comes with being integrity, in power, in full flow and focus to what their intention is, and experience that momentum and that energy that comes with it. And a lot of people have dreams. A lot of people, we already can tell where our desires are if we sat for 5 minutes and we listened, right? What would you share with us in terms of the three things that made a difference for you from your journey that you wouldn't give up on going forward because you know that they will get you to your dreams? You're not there yet. Like your, when we discuss them in terms of your desires, your longings, and why you're doing what you're doing, why you want to uplift people along the way, why you want to take this journey. There's a lot. There's a lot more that you can create and give and bring to the world. You're not there yet, but that doesn't mean you're not on the journey and in full fulfillment of it, right? So, what would you share with us in terms of the three little stones we need to put in place in order to bring that to the forth?
So I think the first thing is take action, do something. Doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter how big it is. Do not worry about the outcome. Do not even think about the result, right? But do something, right? It is one of my teachers, coaches once said to me, life is for living, not for analyzing. And it was wonderful to hear that. It's something I had fairly recently, because I'm often by nature an analyzer. I will think about things, and
Always, especially, may I say, especially fantastic at that.
Yeah, and it's it was just nice to hear, and I think taking action, whatever that is, right? And yeah, don't have to make it perfect. I think because we discussed this when we were going through our sessions a few years ago, right? And it's held true ever since, right? So I think that's probably the first thing. Take action, whatever that looks like to you, whatever it is you feel you need. Trust yourself is probably the second thing. Really trust yourself, and that can be hard, and it can be hard even when you've been doing it for a while. Right? I mean, there's things that come up for me in the last couple of months that, am I doing what I want to do? Am I trusting myself in taking the right step? And we'll question it. But the fact that I'm able to have that conversation and think about it means I'm not just doing what someone else wants me to do, or doing what society at large would expect you to do in that situation, right? And sometimes trusting yourself doesn't come naturally. It's not easy. It wasn't like that for me. And so having faith in something bigger than yourself is also quite important, whatever that is, right? It's not always religion. It's not always, it's just something bigger than yourself, because no matter what we think, we aren't in this alone, right? There are 9 billion other people on this planet, right? And to summarize, a lot of what we talked about is, again, something I heard is, when you move in life and when you move in the right way, it's that synchronicity. Other things are moving towards you, right? And so having that faith is also quite important. I think the other thing is surrounding yourself with good people, right? Surrounding yourself with people who you inspire to be, or make you feel positive, and also people who are able to question you, right? People who are able to challenge you and who have done what you want to do. I think is that is, you can't put a price to that, and it's often hard. Sometimes those people aren't around you; they're not in your immediate circle. So you have to take steps to put yourself in different environments, uncomfortable environments. I remember going to talks and going alone, going to retreats or lectures. Why am I going to these things? And it ended up being fantastic. Ended up learning so much, meeting people, and those are probably the three things that I would recommend. And they're all actionable things. They're all things we can do. They don't require a lot. Right?
Yeah. Wow. So what I heard, really, I loved what you said, like taking the obvious elephant, in the room and addressing him or her straight away. It's like, don't overanalyze, right? Don't analyze life, live it. Because this is about life. This is, yes, it includes career. Yes, some mistakes in career can be costly, absolutely. But what you said there was truly coming from a place of a wiser person who has been through the journey. So if I'm starting this journey, I would take note. Um, don't worry about the result, because it's not about if it's going to work out. It's about you trusting you to make it work. Because once you're in, as we say in career coaching, terminology is, you can't just go down a road and not take yourself with you. Otherwise there's no alignment. Otherwise you're going down a road and yourself is going somewhere else. There's no alignment, there's no integrity if you're not on the road. The good news is, if you're on the road you want to take and you know where you're going, you may not be able to see the destination, but the direction is right. I'm heading north. That's where I want to go, and I'm heading there. The magical part is, if you're in alignment, you can start trusting yourself. That muscle, you said that. And it's beautiful because Shail, and we didn't have any of these conversations when we were doing our work 3-4 years ago. He said faith, something bigger than you. Because if you're being guided already to be on that road, that gives you excitement, that gives you joy, that keeps you integral, that keeps you honest, that keeps you authentic, that is not resisting as much because the fears are not getting in, because it's the right thing anyway. You know it internally. You know if you're on the wrong road, because the slaps will keep coming one after another to wake you up that you're doing something wrong here. It's not for you, right? Not that difficulties are necessarily a bad thing, but if faith can remain there and you can build the trust muscle, this is what the slaps are for, right? But faith can be there, and faith and trust are slightly different. And I think the way I perceive at least faith is being able to be feeling free and aligned in what you're doing, whereas trust is more about the day to day of how I'm experiencing myself and my confidence. I don't like to use the word confidence so much, because trust is more important. It gets us back to values, right? But what you said, they're huge. And the last part, which is really about getting there. The courage will come once you've got these things sorted.
That's it. Yeah, I think the courage and the confidence. I think you said it well. Confidence isn't the thing to be chasing after.
Yeah,
and the confidence comes.
Yeah, and the people around you will sense that. They will know, and new tribe members will come to support you, the ones who are aligned with your goals, right? Sometimes family can be a tough thing. We acknowledge that. But what Shail is saying, that the right people who are definitely tuning into who you are being will come along to support on this journey. And we need to make that shift. The more authentic we become, we lose the people who are not going to carry us on this journey, and we will gain new friends out of nowhere, who will be part of this journey. And we don't have to keep them forever. Some of them, right? Once we grow, then we will meet new friends who will come along. And I think that's so true. And it has been for me. I'm sure it has been for you as well. We have Trevor, who shares Moshi Moshi Christina-san. So that's his Japanese. He's showing off his Japanese. Moshi Moshi, hello. For him, the three elements of what really has helped him to bring his dreams, and I know he's got a very beautiful new position in one of the startups that he loved. Um, Play to your strengths, know your weaknesses, ride the wave of change, which is pretty much what you shared, like especially when you've got a surfboard and you've got a wave. You don't know what's going to happen. Don't overanalyze it. Just ride the damn wave, right? See what happens. You might have the best time of your life. And then number three, strike a balance. Don't spend 100% of your time working, which is in line with take time out, carve time out. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Trevor, for sharing your experience in this. I don't know if the audience has any questions for us, but what a gift. What a gift for me. I mean, personally, just, if no one else heard, I take it as a gift, seeing you in this journey and seeing how beautifully you carried all the doubts, all the courage, and sometimes you had to pull it on your own. You didn't have any family background in the restaurant business. You certainly didn't have any family background in the property business, and perhaps your new ventures. But it's not about knowing and competence. It's about, I want to be here. Now let me see. Let me build that muscle. Let me.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, and it is okay to ask for help. I think that's one of my learnings on the whole journey. It's always, you might be moving into spaces that new to you and you yourself aren't familiar with it. It's okay it's okay to be open, it's okay to communicate. It's okay to shed that belief that I need to do this alone. I held that belief for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that brings a whole another element of, I'll call it synchronistic, I don't have a word for it, but it just brings a whole another level of comfort, of support, of just enhancing your ability to move in the direction you want to move in, right? And so important, be compassionate to yourself in whatever you're doing, whatever that journey looks like, because it isn't no matter what it says. And
What I
that's
say.
so great.
Thank you. And this is the cherry on top, which is not the three things, but hey, be compassionate. Ask for help. And it's not about having it all figured out. It's not meant to be this way. Growth comes from having to be vulnerable, having to say, I don't have a clue. Let's de risk this. How do we do that? People, friends, who in my network knows about this? Do they know anyone who knows about this? Are they good people? Can we work together? Can we sit down and have a little chat to help me out? And then those connections are probably the most meaningful ones, especially when we most need them. That's when new friends and new allies come on board. Look, Shail, I have no words to thank you for doing this with me live and speaking about your experience. As I said, you're my first client who's willing to do this live with me. And we're not going to over contaminate the Eudaimonia live show with too many clients, but Shail was really, an obvious, ally to bring to the board and share what he has achieved so quickly. And it's not about the speed. We're not showing off the speed. It might take years and years to integrate purpose. Sometimes all of our circumstances are different, but the intentionality, the groundedness, the centeredness with which he has taken something fairly intellectual at the time and has brought it down and implemented it to the dot completely with what seems like there's no doubt when he was doing it. Because let's be honest, I think I may have mentioned 95% of startups fail for a startup, right? And this is your first business, like really succeeding. We'll share the links, of course, Amrutha Lounge, the two locations in London. You can taste the beautiful food. that you and your business partner are creating and sharing with the world. But yeah, that didn't deter you at all. So it seemed to me to be the perfect example to share, and also come from a place of how it felt like along the way. What were the thoughts and fears you had to shed in order to make space for what was truly yours to create? Um, and your story needed to be heard. And I'm very, very grateful for you today for doing this on a sunny, beautiful evening where you could be out having beers with your mates. Being here and sharing this message with all of us. Of course, everyone who's in the audience, if you're watching us from anywhere in the world, if you do have questions, personal or more specific and detailed for Shail, he has said that he's happy to be contacted. So I'm going to put his LinkedIn profile link onto the comments after the live show for you to be able to connect with him. He is as lovely as he is here. He has been a few years ago, and he will be even lovelier going down the line. So don't hesitate to reach out to him. He comes with a lot of corporate experience as well. He has been an amazing leader in previous positions, if you check him out. And he's got that paternal, taking care of, vibe about him. So, am I saying too much promoting you?
Very, very sweet.
Shail, thank you once more for being here with me today, sharing your story, your more, intimate part of the purpose journey, the inner bits that, we don't show, we normally work through on our own. And I think it's so important to talk more about them, the hesitations, the resistance, how you navigate through that, because in the end, these are the bits that stop us when we don't know how to recognize them on the journey. Because as I say, once we find purpose, there is naturally the law of resistance if we don't know how to navigate it. And it can stop us if we don't ask for help, if we don't do our practice, if we don't come back to our center, etc., etc. So thank you for sharing this incredible transformation you had in just basically 2 years, and the courage it took to transform, because you did make a huge jump, but in increments. That's the thing. He didn't just, it sounds like a huge jump, but he did it day to day. Remember that. And how the ultimate thing is not about, how big, how you're going to win, how much money you're going to make, what the result will be, but actually how aligned you feel day to day. Just that simple question. And really share with us the direct experience of how it is to make that integration from integrity, knowing of it, to actually integrating it into your life step by step. Huge, 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 huge. But that's the only way to make it achievable. So thank you so, so much. I'll put all his contact details on the comments in every channel we, broadcasted today. Big, big hug. And I can't wait to see what your next chapter is.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take good care, and let's have all a wonderful weekend. And it's summer solstice tomorrow, so make sure you get some sun rays and sun energy to start a beautiful summer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take good care, my dear. Bye-bye.